Welcome to the dark side of SpongeBob, where everything isn't quite what it seems. Behind the colorful show lies a web of unsettling theories and strange moments that make you think twice about what you just saw.
What's going on here? Well,
SpongeBob and I were f***ing.
Join us today as we dive into some of these dark secrets hidden beneath the surface. And if you haven't checked it out, I have done like 2 or 3 of these cartoon conspiracy videos, so I'll link them somewhere up here. Alright, up first is possibly the most infamous SpongeBob one is Red Mist. Red Mist is a controversial real-life bootleg tape featuring an unaired episode of the popular Nickelodeon series SpongeBob SquarePants. Red Mist was purportedly created by a now-in-prison Scottish animator named Andrew Skinner. And basically this episode was intended to he was trying to pass off the tape as a season 4 premiere episode instead of Fear of a Krabby Patty, and this episode would feature the death of Squidward. Now, Red Mist begins with Squidward preparing to practice his clarinet in his room. Squidward wraps his mouth around the clarinet and is only able to play one note before being interrupted by somebody knocking on his door. He walks down and he opens the door, discovers that a traveling salesman is actually the person at his door. The salesman, who's a Scottish fish, asks if he could have a moment with Squidward, basically just taking up his time. Squidward tells him that he's actually not interested and basically just slams the door right in his face. You know how he is. While walking back to his room, the salesman begins knocking again, and Squidward again comes and opens the door. This time he's a little pissed off, you know what I mean? The salesman, looking very upset, tells Squidward the Red Mist is coming. Mad creepy, like, I don't know. Now, after performing several off-key notes, SpongeBob and Patrick begin laughing outside, interrupting Squidward yet again. So they're having a great time. Squidward's pissed off, already mood ruined. Squidward walks over to the window and shouts at them, telling them that he needs to practice for his concert because he's going to be performing there and he basically needs to practice, you know? SpongeBob and Patrick both apologize. Squidward, unsure of himself, walks back and begins playing his clarinet again. This time, uninterrupted, alright? So he has no excuses this time. The scene then fades to red over the course of 12 seconds, and perhaps by a glitch, the same scene is repeated once more, which is somewhat common in rough cuts of animations, because this never made it to full episode, obviously. However, this time Squidward's eyes have been replaced with new and more realistic eyes with red pupils. Clearly they're not real, but more realistic than a CGI TV animation for SpongeBob's time. Now, after the repeat of the previous scene, a new scene actually begins with the same red eyes, but at the theater where Squidward is playing his clarinet, basically he's playing his concert. Now, the frames in the animation skip every 4 seconds or so, but the sound remains synced. After an unruly performance, everyone's booing Squidward. This is like real boos, you feel me? Like, they're forcing it on him. Now, the scene pans to reveal this same Scottish salesman sitting next to them, also booing, as Squidward walks back to his home with his head in his tentacles, basically, you know, obviously he's depressed. What's odd is that the scene actually shows him walking to his house with nothing happening in the background for all of 3 minutes and 50 seconds before abruptly cutting to red for another 12 seconds, just as he's getting back to his house. A new scene appears back to the original cartoon eyes with Squidward sitting in a chair in his room, basically at night with this blank look on his face, for roughly about 30 seconds or so before starting to just sob. Now again, the audio is completely missing for most of this scene until the sobbing starts. Till this crying actually begins. This is when the sound slight breezes through a forest can be heard in the background. It also begins to start zooming in on Squidward's face. Only noticeable if you compare 10 seconds of frames side by side. It's like super mild, the zooming in. Now, the sound of him sobbing can suddenly be heard super loud and severe. Basically, the screen starts glitching and twitching. The salesman's laughter can also be heard echoing in the background. After another 30 seconds, the screen blurs and twitches violently, and a single frame flashes over the screen. Now, upon pausing it exactly on the frame, the viewer would see a real-life mutilated dead child, eviscerated with only his eyes popped out and the photographer's shadow still visible. So this is like some really fucked up shit that apparently was put in this hidden episode by this weird Scottish fucking animator. I don't know, like, I can't vouch for this. I have never seen this exact scene, obviously. I'm sure 99% of people haven't, but apparently that is what is there, and it is fucked up. Now, after this photograph is seen, it cuts back to Squidward sobbing way louder than it was before, and what appears to be blood running from his eyes instead of tears. And then the sound of the salesman is just still laughing, you know what I mean? It's still heard in the background. The sound of the wind in the forest is also played at a much louder volume, but now with the sound of branches snapping and the screams of a young boy can actually be heard in this too. Now the salesman can be here saying, "Do it, do it." basically super loud, super angry, and after 20 more seconds, another single frame appears. This one of an eviscerated and killed 8-year-old girl lying on her stomach, again with the shadow of the photographer. The scene reverts back to Squidward, now with the same realistic red eyes from before, completely silent and no longer sobbing. Now, the sound of the forest can no longer be heard, and another 3 seconds later, it cuts back to the sobbing, this time piercing loud and with the sound of the forest heard as well in the background. The screams of both a young boy and young girl can be heard mixed together as the sound Amazing Grace plays on both the clarinet and the bagpipes. During this, 7 frames are seen. Now, when viewing, the scenes here are different. It's a boy who looks like the one in the first photo laying out in the woods. Now, over the course of the 7 frames, the hand of the photographer reaches in and grabs the boy's entrails as his remaining eye focuses on the man's hand and even blinks once. Now, Squidward is staring at the viewer with the same realistic red mist eyes. Children can be heard screaming and crying in the background, and it's loud at this point. After around 30 seconds of this, the screen pans out to reveal that Squidward is holding a gun. He puts it to his mouth and pulls the trigger as blood splatters and covers the entire screen. Now, the screen shows Squidward dead, while the red mist is coming once again just echoes in the background. And Mr. Hillenberg is obviously angry at this. He demanded to know what was going on with this episode, and there was an investigation due to the nature of the photos in this, but nothing ever came about it. No child scene was identified and no clues were ever gathered from the data involved, nor physical clues in the photos. Yeah, that is apparently the story of Red Mist or Squidward's unaliving himself, because I can't say the fucking S word, which is ridiculous. That's all for that one. Pretty fucked up shit, if I'm being honest with you. Like, if that's even true, I don't know. I've seen the little cutouts, I've seen the little bits of animation. I don't know if I really believe this is 100% true. I mean, the dude is in jail, apparently, but I don't know, man. Like, that shit is like a little too far-fetched. Although maybe I'll do a video on, I know one of the Nickelodeon shows, they did some weird shit behind the scenes with all their animators making some really weird scenes, and they were officially made by the actual animators. So maybe at some point I'll talk about those. And yeah, that's it. That was Red Mist. Let me know if you've heard of this. This is like probably one of the most infamous creepypastas, SpongeBob theories, whatever you want to call it. So I'm sure some of you have heard of this at some point. But anyways, yeah, if I can find anything, I'll maybe link it down below. I'm not linking to any crazy photos, but if I can find any more information about this, I'll link it down below. And yeah, stay safe, stay dangerous, get laid, and I'll catch you later.